Breaking tonight, mass evacuations with out-of-control wildfires erupting. More than 250,000 people in France and Spain told to get to safety. Flames burning out of control. Look at this. Crews attacking a wall of fire. Others forced to retreat. The Madrid skyline shrouded in smoke and ash. And the final stage of the Tour de France now shortened. Also breaking right now, at least one person reportedly killed in Germany as a car plows into a crowd at a pride parade. The major new food recall, this time it's eggs. 19 million pulled over Salmonella concerns. The new fears about food safety as health officials also battle to control the parasite outbreak tied to lettuce. Protests in cities across the country over immigration confrontations. And the finding raising new questions about a deadly shooting in Houston. The growing calls for justice tonight. A new front opening in the war in the Middle East. The Saudis trading strikes with rebels in Yemen. We're live in the region. Head coach car crash. These significant injuries for the man who leads the San Francisco 49ers. Caught on camera, a stunning security breach 60 stories high at Seattle's Space Needle. Look at this, daredevils climbing over a barrier to backflip off the edge and parachute down. Caitlin Clark speaking publicly about controversies on and off the court and her reaction to the words of encouragement from former President Obama. Outrage in San Diego after this man was spotted kicking a sea lion. Inside the fight to develop clean energy on Native American land and ease the strain on America's energy grid. What tribal leaders say is stopping them. And there's good news tonight about one airport worker's mission to make even the smallest lost item found again.
This is NBC Nightly News with Jose Diaz-Balart.
Good evening. I'm Hallie Jackson in for Jose, and we begin tonight with massive wildfires burning out of control in Spain and France, forcing 250,000 people to evacuate fast. Crews, look at this, fighting these off 24/7. You can see here firefighters retreating as this wall of flames, look how big that is, closes in on them. This is the scene in Valencia, where officials say one person was found dead in his car, apparently trying to escape. Part of the reason these fires are so hard to tackle, the wind keeps shifting. You can see these flames here whipping back and forth because of that. But crews are doing whatever they can to try to get a handle on these fires, like in France, where they're pulling up pool water as part of the response. Our Liz Kreutz starts us off tonight.
Tonight, a race to contain multiple massive wildfires raging across Europe. In Spain and France, 250,000 people now forced to flee the flames as firefighters battle the infernos on the ground and in the air using military aircraft. Fires now turning deadly. Today, Spanish authorities say an elderly man died in his car after a new brush fire ignited near Valencia. Outside Madrid, this roof camera video shows how quickly the flames encroached and then engulfed this home as two wildfires combined into one. Videos show fire crews desperately rescuing a dog. And here, dousing a calf in water as firefighters pull water from swimming pools to save homes. Meanwhile, similar scenes unfolding in France, where French authorities have now been forced to change the final stage of the famed Tour de France race amid the ongoing disaster. Outside the southwest city of Bordeaux, this is the apocalyptic view from a local beach as the fires tear through homes and neighborhoods. Sky News' Sadia Chowdhury reports from the area.
Not long after the fire swept through this neighborhood, the ground is still smoldering and it is still hot to touch. The air is really ashy and it's quite difficult to breathe.
These relentless blazes fueled by record heat and drought across much of Europe. Tonight, this is the smoky skyline in Spain's capital, Madrid. And in France, the prime minister tonight saying the fires have reached a scale the country has never seen before.
Liz is joining us now. And Liz, it is not just Europe suffocating from that extreme heat. Here at home, a new heat dome is affecting a lot of us, too.
Yeah, Hallie, that's right. 97 million people from here in California to across the country in Florida are under heat alerts right now. Some cities like Denver and Minneapolis are 10 or more degrees above normal, and many of those heat alerts are expected to last at least through Tuesday. Hallie.
Liz Kreutz, thank you. We are following breaking news overseas right now, where police say multiple people have been hit in Berlin after a car drove into crowds at a pride parade there in Germany. At least one person has been killed, according to the AP, and the parade is now canceled. You can see some people leaving here, more police arriving on scene here. Investigators are looking for whoever was behind the attack. To yet another food safety concern tonight with the major recall of millions of eggs because of possible salmonella contamination. It comes as some health officials already have their hands full with the growing parasite outbreak believed to be tied to lettuce. Dr. Akshay Sayal has the latest.
Tonight, another foodborne outbreak. Nearly 20 million eggs recalled for potential salmonella contamination. The FDA urging people to check their refrigerators for any affected eggs and throw them out, saying almost 100 people are sick in 17 states, dozens hospitalized with no deaths reported so far. Midwest Poultry Services recalling the eggs, sold under several brand names, including at Kroger grocery stores. Those eggs produced and distributed from farms in Texas, which is reporting the most cases. Salmonella can cause diarrhea, fever, and vomiting, similar to symptoms of cyclosporiasis. Much of the country still grappling with that outbreak, with nearly 12,000 confirmed or suspected cases nationwide. No single confirmed source.
What's unique about this is the fact that, right now our public health agencies, both at the federal and state and local levels, are probably stretched extremely thin.
Barbara Kowalczyk is a professor of food safety at George Washington University. She's worried that recent funding cuts to public health agencies could impact future outbreaks.
Do you see these as isolated incidents or of a larger problem to come?
I think these are not isolated incidents. Any outbreak is a symptom of a broken system.
Still, experts say there are steps you should be doing to protect yourself from all foodborne illnesses, like carefully washing your fruits and vegetables and keeping up with the latest recalls. Dr. Akshay Sayal, NBC News.
Protesters in more than a dozen cities demonstrating today against immigration crackdowns and recent killings by ICE officers. Priscilla Thompson reports.
ICE out of everywhere! ICE out of everywhere!
Tonight, anti-ICE demonstrations across more than a dozen cities after 2 deadly traffic stops by officers this month.
What do we want?
In Maine, 26-year-old Johann Sebastian Duran Guerrero was killed, his limp body pulled from behind the wheel with his wife and 3-year-old daughter nearby. And in Houston, 52-year-old Lorenzo Salgado Araujo was killed while driving this van. DHS has said he attempted to run over an officer, something others inside the van deny. Neither Guerrero nor Araujo were the target of ICE's operations, officials say.
Here in Houston, demonstrators are in the streets chanting ICE out of Houston and demanding accountability.
I think the most immediate thing is that investigation needs to happen. We want the investigation to be transparent. We want to be able to get all the information available.
Tonight, Araujo's son vowing to keep fighting.
I will make it my life's mission to bring justice to him, but not just to him, but to everyone that has been wronged and is living in the shadows.
Priscilla is joining us now live from Houston. And Priscilla, we're also learning more tonight about that incident there where you are.
That's right, Hallie. The FBI had said they found a substance in the van that was believed to be drugs, but Araujo's family had said that it was a homemade electrolyte mix. Now the district attorney here says that it has tested negative for drugs, as tonight the community is gathering inside the church behind me as they prepare to march to the scene of the shooting to remember Araujo. Hallie?
Priscilla Thompson, thank you. For the first time in 2 weeks, no new strikes against Iran overnight. But that pause comes as a possible new front is opening up in the war. Richard Engel is in Jerusalem.
The U.S.-Iran war is spilling over as a new front is expanding with major implications for the world economy. Saudi Arabia and the Iranian-backed Houthi militia are now in an open tit-for-tat conflict, a war within a war. Last night, Saudi Arabia attacked the Houthi-controlled port city of Hodeidah. The Houthis say they attacked Saudi Arabia's crown jewel, its Aramco oil facilities, a main source of the country's wealth. Earlier this week, the Houthis attacked 2 Saudi ships in the Red Sea, driving markets down and oil prices up. 12% of all global trade passes through the Red Sea. Saudi Arabia and the Houthis fought a 7-year war ending in 2022 that now seems to be reigniting. But what didn't happen today is equally important. No direct U.S. strikes on Iran and no Iranian attacks on U.S. bases in the Middle East for the first time in 2 weeks. President Trump says he's still considering a massive strike on Iran.
We're locked and loaded and ready to go, but we're talking to them, so I think while we're talking, we'll see what comes of it.
One front in the Middle East may be cooling down, while another is heating up.
The pause in direct attacks between the U.S. and Iran could open the door for renewed diplomacy. Arab mediators tell NBC News they are pushing hard for negotiations to resume. Hallie?
Richard Engel, thank you. To one of the most closely watched midterm races in the country now, after an embattled Democrat ended his campaign in scandal. Tonight, a new pick to replace Graham Plattner in Maine. Our Julie Sirkin has that story. And Julie, it's going to be a real sprint to Election Day in a race that could flip the balance of power in the Senate eventually.
Hallie, that's right. And there are over 100 days until the midterms, and Democrats need to win this seat in Maine if they want to take back the Senate in November. Delegates chose former state Senator Troy Jackson today, replacing the controversial Democrat Graham Plattner, who dropped out amid sexual assault allegations he denies. Now, Hallie, this is a race both parties are watching closely. Republican Senator Susan Collins has held the seat for nearly 3 decades. Hallie?
And as we look ahead to the midterms, Julie, a new court ruling on voting in November amounts to a loss tonight for the Trump administration, right?
It does, Hallie. The court ruling the Trump administration can't force states to restrict vote by mail after nearly half of them sued to stop an elections-related executive order signed this spring. Today's order, Hallie, means President Trump will unlikely be able to make changes he wants to make to the voting process before the midterms. Hallie?
Julie Sirkin in Washington, thank you. New questions tonight over a security breach at a popular tourist site with 2 daredevils spotted climbing over the edge of the Space Needle in Seattle and backflipping off, with an active investigation happening now. A daredevil stunt posted online by one observer 500 feet above Seattle at the tip of the Space Needle. The crowd at the popular tourist spot shocked as 2 base jumpers scale a glass barrier, parachutes strapped to their backs. Seconds later, backflipping right off the edge. Video from the ground showing the moment one of them made their way down, parachute deployed. It's still not clear whether both base jumpers landed safely or where they are now. But the Space Needle tells our Seattle affiliate they're working closely with the Seattle Police Department, reviewing security footage and assisting with the active investigation, with questions over how this security breach could have happened at one of the most popular tourist destinations on the West Coast. The latest stunt.
Oh, my God.
Coming just weeks after this played out on top of New York's Empire State Building. A man and woman dressed all in black scaling to the top of the spire.
2 geniuses climbed to the top of the Empire State Building,
unfurling a banner about peace and love.
You can't be up here.
Before being taken into custody by police. That couple now charged with serious crimes, including reckless endangerment and burglary. Seemingly little deterrent for this pair on the other coast as police work to find them. This stunt, by the way, happening on a busy weekend in Seattle with thousands of visitors in town for a parade and a big food festival. Also tonight, we are learning the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers is recovering from a serious car crash, according to the team. Our colleagues at NBC Sports report that Kyle Shanahan has a concussion and a broken nose and needed dozens of stitches in his face. He's expected to have a limited role for now as training camp begins. Still ahead for us tonight, what WNBA star Caitlin Clark's saying now about the controversial spotlight she's in. Back now with the disturbing act of animal cruelty caught on camera, and it is tough to watch here. A man kicking a sea lion multiple times, triggering outrage in San Diego, as you might imagine, with people there demanding he face charges. Federal officials are now investigating. Also tonight, a basketball superstar speaking publicly now about the controversies she's faced on and off the court. Here's Valerie Castro.
After controversies on and off the court, WNBA star Caitlin Clark now speaking out.
There's obviously a lot of people that like to comment on my character and think that they know me.
The Indiana Fever guard facing criticism for her fouls and aggressive play, now leaving her 1 incident away from a single-game suspension.
That intensity and that fire is what makes me me.
Fever coach Stephanie White.
She knows. She has awareness.
But Clark was the subject of recent headlines last month when Phoenix Mercury player Alyssa Thomas received a 1-game penalty and fine for appearing to put her fist over Clark's throat after she fell to the floor. The flagrant foul imposed after the game following a review by the league. Thomas getting death threats in the aftermath, Clark condemning the calls for violence.
It should have been dealt with in the moment.
And after a recent USA Today opinion piece described Clark's behavior on the court when fouls aren't called on her opponents as histrionics and a sign of her flopping, Clark fighting back.
I think there's just like a false characterization of who I am.
And hearing these encouraging words from a famous fan during the WNBA All-Star Weekend practice in Chicago.
Caitlin, how are you? Really nice to meet you. You're great. You're fantastic.
Thank you.
Former President Barack Obama telling Clark to ignore the noise.
Don't let all this nonsense get you down.
It was cool to hear that from him. And honestly, it's probably a good reminder for all of us of treating people with respect, treating people with grace.
Valerie Castro, NBC News.
We are back in a moment with the battle to develop clean energy and help lower costs on tribal lands. Back tonight with new reporting as energy costs rise on how some indigenous communities hoping to develop renewable resources on their tribal lands say the federal government's throwing roadblocks in their way. Julie Sirkin explains.
Power, land, and water. We have an abundance of all three.
Windmills dot the South Dakota plains.
So it's prime development for, solar or wind. But to get access to that capital is extremely difficult for tribes.
On these hallowed lands belonging to the Sioux tribe, not a single turbine in sight.
Developing an Indian country is one of the hardest things to do on this earth.
Why? What makes it so hard?
Federal government.
The government tried to make it easier. The Biden administration created a program that would back private capital loans to ease the risk for investors. But that $75 million fund, as well as other clean energy grants, were gutted in the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill, signed into law by President Trump last summer.
On this reservation in this vast open field behind me, just 2 wind farms could have been used to generate power for 500,000 households. Those projects are now on hold.
Some of those households would have been in states as far away as California, where reliance on wind power is growing.
If we as a tribe don't do something and get into the game, then we're going to be left behind like we always have been.
Natural disasters, artificial intelligence, and cryptocurrency are driving energy demands nationwide.
There is huge untapped potential on tribal lands to generate electricity of all types.
Adria Brooks is a transmission planning expert who used to work with the Department of Energy.
Our utility rates are going to go up each month. It also is going to mean, though, that our electricity is not as reliable.
That's where the Oceti-Sakowin Power Authority would have come in, to develop renewable energy resources on tribal land to alleviate the aging grid. Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe Chairman Ryman LeBeau is on the board.
What would it mean to be able to have wind turbines on this land?
It would mean energy sovereignty for our people. We would use the land to put up the wind energy towers and power our homes, our communities, our hospitals, our clinics.
Helping tribes unlock revenue streams they critically need. But some tribal members say they should be consulted about any projects on their land.
We want to do these new things, but the federal government at every turn, passes all these things that are a direct hindrance to Native American people within the United States.
The Department of the Interior, the agency that oversees government relations with Native Americans, did not respond to our requests for comment. Julie Sirkin, NBC News.
When we come back, there is good news tonight about the airport baggage handler going the extra mile. There is good news tonight about going above and beyond to make a big impact with the smallest of gestures.
They come in all shapes and sizes, but most passengers don't think twice about their luggage tag, at least until it disappears.
It seems like a shame just to throw them away.
That's American Airlines Phoenix Fleet Service worker Randy Crowell. His days filled with racing around the ramp to get bags onto their next flights. And for nearly a decade, he and his team have been on the lookout for lost tags, reuniting them with their owners.
This is a souvenir for them for the trip they took, and it probably has some sentimental value to them.
Randy and his tag team find about 40 a week, cleaning them up before writing a note and adding a zip tie, sending them back to their owners. He's sent thousands on his own dime, even though American has offered to help.
I just think it's the right thing to do.
They've gone back to all 50 states, every Canadian province, even Central and South America.
Japan, South Korea, New Zealand, Australia, tons to England.
Passenger Nancy Gannon, so touched to get her tag back, she wrote a letter to the airline.
It was an intentional act of kindness that I just think the world needs more of.
It's those personal stories that keep Randy going, returning this one to Carrie Legault, celebrating a milestone.
This gentleman went above and beyond for a stranger, and while it might seem like something simple as a bag tag, it was important and had value to me.
Others marking joy after life's hardest moments.
They went on a trip to Hawaii to celebrate their son beating leukemia. You almost cry when you read stuff like that.
A big impact from even the smallest acts of kindness.
And in even more good news tonight, a huge congratulations to our colleague and dear friend Jose, who would typically, of course, be in this spot tonight. But this evening, he is being inducted into the National Association of Hispanic Journalists Hall of Fame. And it is so well deserved. Jose has been breaking barriers his entire career, including as the only person to anchor nightly newscasts in both English and Spanish with our partners at Telemundo. Jose Diaz-Balart, officially a Hall of Famer tonight. We love you, friend. We are just so happy for you. Jose will be back next week, and I'll see you right here tomorrow. For all of us at NBC, thanks for watching, and have a great night.
Our series, The Cost of Denial, where we investigate the challenges people face with insurance.
We bring clarity to the complicated issues shaping your world.
For the viewers at home, if they find themselves in that situation, what should they do?
NBC Nightly News with Tom Yalmas, reporting for America.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.